So we'll be going in accordance to the hands raised. First, we have Swastik Banerjee. You can unmute yourself.
Uh, yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Turn on your camera.
Uh, yes, sir. Can you see me?
Yeah. You can share your screen.
Yes, sir. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Just a second. How can I hide this?
What exactly do you want to hide?
I wanted to hide this screen share
You can
option.
minimize the panel. I think there will be an option to minimize the panel.
Yes, I can. Okay. So I'll start then.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. I am Swastik Banerjee, and this is my second project at Hagveda Limited, and I've been assigned to do an EDA or exploratory data analysis, as they say, on credit card fraud detection dataset. So as I'm from the Department of Machine Learning and Deep Learning, so I've been given the task to do pre-processing on my assigned data. So for source info, I've downloaded this data set from kaggle.com. So without further ado, I'll start. So let's see the agenda for today. Could you see the whole screen, or are you seeing?
I can see just the presentation. That's fine.
Okay. So for our agenda, we have six agendas lined up. So first, we'll look at the objectives. The objectives, like why we built this project in the first place, and then we'll go into the subject matter, that is the EDA, and we'll go three steps at a time. We'll first understand our data set, then we'll clean our data set, and third thing, that is analyzing our data set through visualizations. And after our EDA is done through these three steps mentioned, we'll formulate a report which consists of three key findings from our EDA, of course. And last but not the least, we'll discuss about the future scope of our projects. Okay. And during each step, I'll guide you through the live demonstration of this project, of course. So for objectives, we have four objectives. The first one is to remove or impute missing values in the data set. So what we have done is, what is essential, the first and foremost thing that what we need to do is removing any null values that are present in the data set. Why? Because we want to do predictive analysis or classification on our data set. Second one would be finding the correlation between variables. So let's say if we have a database, there are many attributes in the database. In the attributes refers to the characteristic of each record in the database. So we need to find the correlation between all the attributes that are present in the database. So in order to find correlation between variables, we'll use many visualization techniques in the third step we'll discuss. In the third step, what we do is to analyze the fraud scenario that we get. Okay, so our main agenda is to find the fraud scenario, right? We are doing a fraud analysis on a data set, on a transactional data set. Okay, so that would be our main aim. And last but not least, we'll generate clean data set for further fitting in the AI models. Okay, so for the first step, we'll understand the data. Okay, so first we do is find out the number of rows and columns that are there in our data set. That is, we find the dimensions. Okay, we'll use the shape attribute in this regard. I'll show you guys how we are doing this. In the substep 2, we have the summary of the dataset, which we are getting using a describe method. And for step 3, we analyze the number of unique values for each column. Okay, there's a method called NUnique method. An unique method is required to find the number of unique values. Let's say if we have a attribute called gender, okay, there are three possible values, let's say male, female, and others. Okay, so the number of unique values that are there in the attribute is of course 3. So an unique method, we can find the number of unique methods through this method, of course. So I'll quickly go to my Google Colab, which has a Jupyter notebook in it. So I'll guide you through these steps. Okay. So first step we'll do is to import all the Python libraries which are there. Of course, pandas, numpy, seaborn, matplotlib, and then we'll paste this path for our data set, and we'll use pandas to load the data set uh, in the what to say, the variable data. Okay, and the first step begins. Okay, we are understanding data now. The head attribute, sorry, the head method, as I should say, has listed down all the 5 rows which are there in the first 5 rows, of course, in the data set, which has 31 columns. Okay, so we need to know the all the attributes over here. Okay, so for the time we have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2. This says about the time instant at which the transaction has been made in terms of seconds. Okay, so at 0th second from the time of observation, we have this transaction going on. On the first second, this transaction went on. From this second, this transaction went on. Okay, and we have 28 total uh, attributes in between, which Kaggle didn't uh, specified about, because these are private data. Okay, these are bank data which are being collected over 2 years. So we don't really know what these 28 attributes exactly are all about. But what we need is the class. Okay, the target variable we have is class. Okay, so if we get a class value of 1, we say that the transaction has a fraudulent case, has a fraudulent scenario, and the amount says the amount for which the transaction has been made. So that's our data set for you. Okay, and we'll also see the last 5 rows in the data set. Okay, there's a significance why we are listing out the last 5 data set. We'll discuss it in future slides. Okay, so we see there are 9964th row is the last row. Okay, so that means by shape attribute, as I discussed in this slide, we have 9965 columns. Okay, and sorry, 9965 rows. Okay, and 31 columns, as it is mentioned in every step over here. Okay, so that's the shape attribute, and describe attribute basically lists down all the summary. Okay, let's say time has a total count of this value, the mean in the all the values listed in time column is this number, the standard deviation, minimum, the first quartile, the median, the maximum value. We get the full summary for each attribute using the describe method. And of course, we have listed down all the columns over here that are all the variables or the attributes that are there in the database. And using this n unique method, which I discussed in this slide, we are getting the number of unique values that are there in the dataset. Okay, so we get a unique value for class to be 2. Okay, so class can either be 0 or can be 1. Okay, so our main target variable is class, so we'll focus on class only. And for the other attributes, you can see there are many unique values. Okay, and moving on, we'll get the we can list the amount unique values. There are this amount transaction has been made, this amount transaction has been made, and there are many unique values which are there. Okay, so that's our first part. Okay, we first understand our data. We do this following steps and understand the data over here. Okay, I'll just exit from Colab and just okay. So the first step is done for us. The next step is cleaning the data. Okay, so we'll do these things using similar steps. Okay, so our first step would be finding the number of null values. We have found that there can be null value. Okay, but we have to find the number of null values to the data set, and we'll use is null and sum methods. Okay, to do this operation. Second step will be dropping the columns which has none value, and third step will be to checking by that is null method if our data set is free from any kind of missing values or not. Okay, so if our data set contains no missing value, there are no null values, we can declare our data set to be clean. So that's our agenda for step 2. So I'll again go to Google Colab, and explain to you the next step, of course, cleaning the data. So we are listing all the data is null and some function. Okay, so this row and column set over here listed down the number of null values which are there for each attribute. As we can see, there are only one attribute over here that has null that has null value. Okay, so from v3 to class we have one null value in each of the attribute. So what we do over here is we drop the 9964th record. Okay, so why are we removing 9964 record? Let's go up. As I mentioned, we have to discuss something in tail. We are seeing in 996 row, we have NaN. NaN is a data type that stands for not a number. Okay, we are getting a data type as NaN, NaN. So we can see there are null values in this record. So we have to drop this record only. So what we are doing is after finding out there is a null value of one in each of the attribute. So for that, we drop this entire record. Okay. And after dropping the entire record, we again list the number of null values. We can easily see all the attributes doesn't contain any null value. So we can infer that our data is clean. Okay. So that's step 2 for you. Moving on, the final and last step of our EDA, that's analyzing and visualizing our data. So what we do is we analyze the correlation matrix. Okay. So as I mentioned before, we have to find the correlation between variables. So that has to be done using the matplot library. We will plot the variable values and then we'll see how the data stand. Okay. Then we plot the target value. Our target value is class. Okay. We'll plot the target value, and using scatter plot of Seaborn library, we'll see that in what scenario the fraud is happening. Okay. And last thing we'll do is that we'll observe the time and amount. Okay. When the fraud happened and the amount of transaction that happened with the fraud. Okay. We'll see that in the plotted graph. So this data leads us to further investigation of the fraud scenario. So we'll do this in the last step. Okay. I'll again go to Google Colab for the last step. So we can see that I've made a correlation matrix over here. So using PLT is nothing but matplotlib. Okay. So we are giving the figure size as 22,20. That's a dimension for you. So we have done a heat map with SNS. SNS stands for your Seaborn library. And we are plotting the correlation matrix over here. As you can see in the Y matrix, sorry, the Y axis, there is all the variables listed over here. Class 2, V18, V2, and all of them. And in the X axis, there are all the same attributes listed over here. As you can see, there's a proper value of 1 over in this V15 and V14. As you can see, there are the value 1 comes only when the same attributes are there in both row and column. Okay. One means that both the variables are completely related to each other. If V14 increases by 10 times, the value 1, which for which V14 is 1, will also increase by the same amount. And if it's -1, it will decrease by the same amount as it has increased for that value. So if we get a positive value for it between 0 and 1, we can say both the variables are positively correlated. And if we get a negative value for this, for those pair of variables, we can say they are negatively correlated. Okay. And the values always stay between -1 and 1. So that's the correlation matrix for you. And the last thing, the last visualization, the scatter plot visualization, which we have done using the SNS, the Seaborn library, has told us we have plotted time in the x-axis, amount in the y-axis, and we can see the class value to be 1, where time is almost like 9,000. It's like 9,000 seconds. It's like almost 2.5 hours, and the amount is almost touching $2,000. Okay, so we can say that the fraud has happened in this scenario only. Okay, so we again go back to the slide. We can see our key findings. Okay, the report that I have prepared, of course. So we analyzed nearly 10K credit card transaction details spanning over 2 days. Okay, and out of 2K transactions, sorry, out of 10K transaction, only one high value of class obtained, which refers to a fraud. Like that tells us about the target variable. Okay, out of 10,000 transactions, there is one fraud happening, and the fraud occurred after 2.5 hours of start, and amount lost was almost $2,000. So we are also identifying that when the fraud has happened. One fraud has happened in 10,000 transactions, that we know, and when the fraud has happened, that also we know. So that's the whole purpose of EDA. Before like deploying it to a model, we are doing a data analysis on the previous data, so that we can uh, we can't like there has to be no scenario where a fraud is happening. Okay, so we have to detect when the fraud is happening through our key findings or a report. So that's the most important slide of this whole presentation, I would say. And for future scope, we can apply ML regression or classification models that can be trained on the prepared data set that we basically prepared uh, in this project of ours. And to sum up, I can say that if anyone in the meeting has any questions, they can shoot the questions without any hesitation. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Can you explain the correlation between each of the columns
Yes.
mentioned in the dataset?
Yes, sure. So I'll go to the Google Colab again. Okay. So as you can see in the y-axis, let's say we take time. Okay. We take time as the variable in y-axis, and now we go down. We come to time in the x-axis. Okay. As you can see, as you can see here, the value for time in the y-axis and time in this x-axis is 1.00. That means both the variables are completely related with each other. Okay, if value of time becomes double, the on the y-axis, the value of time will also become double in the x-axis. Okay, and if we want to find the correlation between, let's say, time in the y-axis and let's say v9, okay, v9 in the x-axis. So we go up, there's 0.47 relation between time and that v6 or v7, but we considered in the x-axis. So we can say there's a positive correlation between time and v6. That means if time increases, v6 will also increase. If we take the case of v5, okay, we are getting a correlation of minus 0.01. So we have a negative correlation. That means if time increases, v5 will decrease. So using these variable values, we can predict the relation between each variable or each matrix. Okay, so that's my explanation.
And what about the different colors in the heat map? What are
Okay,
they
okay.
exactly?
Yes, yes. So so if we get a more lighter shade, okay, we can say the value is almost near to zero. That means like both the variables are not correlated with each other. Okay, if we get a value of zero, okay, between two variables, that means they don't they don't intersect in the graph. Basically, they have no common solution, or they are not related to each other at all. And if we get a darker shade, that means they are related to each other more than they are related to each other being zero or anything. Like see, we have a very dark shade for 1.00, and we have a darker shade for 0.63. 0.63 is a big value, okay, compared to other values over here. As you can see, the lesser values which are nearer to 1 has a lighter shade, while the values which are nearer to -1 or 1 has a darker shade. So that's my explanation.
But what does all of this relation indicate? You mentioned two variables, right?
Yes, yes.
So what are the colors actually really indicating? What is the value 1 indicating to me? What is the value 0 indicating to me?
Okay, so this is like these things mainly come into play in the next stage of ours, when we are designing the ML models. When let's say we are like deploying decision tree or random forest models on
I'm
them.
just asking, what does the value 1 and 0
Yeah.
indicate?
Okay, one indicates complete correlation between those two values. Like both the values are equal almost. Okay.
And what does
And
that indicate later?
okay, okay, that okay. I see your question, but as I know, like I haven't come across a value almost equal to one if they are not the same variables.
Your
Okay.
project is based on credit card fraud detection, right?
Yes, yes.
So I think the value 1 indicates fraud and value 0 indicates
Yeah,
no
yeah.
fraud.
That is for class variable only. Okay.
That
So that
is
is
that
that
is
is
all
that.
that I'm asking to you, nothing else.
Yeah, 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 sir. So it is like in this scatter plot, we can like time and amount we are plotting, and we are getting the amount one for class. Okay. So that's the class scatter plot.
Okay. Uh, can you go up on the top,
Yes, yes,
completely on the
yes,
top?
yes.
Can you explain
Yes.
in brief each library that has been used?
Okay. So yeah. So first pandas library. Okay. So using pandas library, we do statistical analysis.
Hmm.
There is NumPy library, which stands for numerical Python. So in Python, we can't do complex calculation on our own uh, using just writing codes. The numerical Python does it for us. It
Okay.
has a lot of functions in it, so we can just call max or min function, and it will just generate the maximum or minimum value for us. And Seaborn and Matplotlib are mainly used for visualization purposes.
Hmm.
We can generate heat maps out of Seaborn.
Okay.
For Matplotlib, we can uh, generate a correlation matrix.
Any single point of difference between pandas and NumPy that you can tell?
Single point of difference. Both contains is its own set of functions, So I've used those functions, so that's why
Any
I
one
know that.
difference?
Uh, Mainly all the we can do the like measures of central dependence, central tendency using pandas, but we can't do the same using NumPy. Okay. And we can do all the exponential operations using NumPy, but we can do it with pandas.
Okay. You mentioned that I think you mentioned a method named nUnique.
Yes, sir.
So what exactly is that class value two?
Okay, so we have total two amounts of unique values. Okay, so class can either be zero in number or it can be one in number. Okay, so there are two possible values. Okay, so that's how the any unique refers class as two. Like there are two possible numbers in a binary number system. Okay, so that's why we call it binary. It's either zero or one. There are 10 digits in decimal number system, 0 to 9. That's why we call it decimal. So that's how it works actually. The number of unique values in for an attribute.
Okay. You can go to your thank you slide.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think a thank you slide is missing. Typically,
Okay.
suggestions for you are try introducing about the topic
Yes.
in a later slide, or introduce just introduce or give a gist about the topic in like an introduction slide. I
Okay.
think you gave the introduction while you were at the start of the presentation. Don't do that.
Yes.
While you're on
Okay.
the start of the presentation, just mention the topic, the project name, introduce yourself, and also mention your domain name as well.
Okay.
Other
Okay. Okay.
okay, and what else? You don't have a thank you slide, right? Include a thank you
Yes,
slide
sir.
as well.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir.
Overall, the presentation was nice.
Okay.
And yeah, nothing else. You will be like we'll be sending a review to you on your mail.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And
Thank
also another thing, you did not show me the entire data set before going to the code.
Okay.
You
Okay.
have to show the data
Okay.
set,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and you have to explain the libraries that you have used.
Okay.
You
Okay.
don't necessarily have to explain the code, but
Hmm.
instead explain the output.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Other than that, it was fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you can stop sharing your screen.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, then we have Tarun. You can unmute.
Yes, sir. Is my voice audible?
Yeah, it's audible. Turn on your camera.
Yeah, yeah.
You can share your screen.
Okay, sir. Sir, is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's
Is my
visible.
PPT? Yeah. Can I start my presentation, sir?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. This is I'm Tarun from MIT Manipal. Today I'm going to give you presentation about Doctor Search website. So what I'm going to discuss here about, first I'll start with introduction, followed by aim, then methodology I have used for designing this task, and the design workflow, live demo, and the limitations of this project and the future work that can be done, and then conclusion and finally the reference. So coming to introduction, this is the website created for searching doctors in a particular area. Users can search for doctors in their area by giving the type of the doctor and specifying the area in which they want to search. So earlier, what was happening was, I mean, some years back, if someone want to search for a doctor, they used to, I mean, they used to take the help with, I mean, with the help by of some pamphlets or by through reading newspapers or by some mouth talk, etc. But now, as the technology is way more advanced right now, as it is on our fingertips, now as we have, as everyone, almost of us, everyone have the internet access. It is very easy for everyone to come on the internet and search for doctor with this, with the help of these kind of websites. So what all the user want to do here is, you want to type the specialization of the doctor and the area. That's all you want to do. Coming to the aim of my project, the aim of our project is to provide a user friendly and efficient platform for each and every individual to easily search and find the ideal doctors for healthcare, for their healthcare needs. So basically our requirement is to develop a doctor search website that allows user to enter their doctor category and their location. So the methodology I have used for designing this task is design, front end, back end, database and hosting. Coming to design part, first of all I have taken a template and I have designed the layout with the help of Figma. Then coming to the front end part, I have used a Locofy app that which converts the design into HTML and CSS code. Coming to the back end, I have created a web service using PHP. Basically, PHP is a language which is used to create web service, and I have connected my backend with front end with the help of using jQuery. So I have created my database using MySQL, where SQL is the primary query language to store the entire doctor's information. And finally, I have used 000 web host to deploy the website. So this is the design part, where you can see a navigation bar which includes home button, about button and section button. Coming to the search section, this is the most important section of this website, because here what the user enters the inputs. Here you can see here you can find three buttons. I mean, three buttons which will take input. One is find doctor and the second is select area and finally the search button. Coming to the service section, this is an additional section which tells about the doctor, which tells about that hospital services, and finally this is the additional information. So as I told in the previous slide, I have used Locofy app. So Locify is a plugin that was added to Figma, which will convert the template of which will convert into and which will convert the template of the website into HTML and CSS code. So I have added all necessary animation effects like hover effects and all. I have that all included in my website. Finally, it was converted into HTML and CSS code. So after converting, this is how the code looks like. I mean, this is the basic snapshot I have taken. It includes so much. So then coming to workflow, as I said in the previous slide, first user will be giving two inputs. First one is you will be giving doctor category, and second one is area. So the request will be sent to the backend, and the data will be fetched to database, and again from the database, the request will be sent to the backend, and finally user will be able to see. So basically, this is like client and server approach. I mean, client will be giving some asking some query to the server, and server will be replying back again. So I have used PHP as the main language for creating this web service. So it is a backend language that helps in processing the data, and also also has the logic for fetching the data. So for connecting this backend with frontend, I have used jQuery as the primary query language. So this is all about what PHP does and what jQuery does. So this is about hosting part. Hosting is one of the main methods for deploying a website. So 00 web host is, I mean, we include all the files like the CSS files, HTML files. We all include that files in this website, and finally we deploy this web host so that we will be able to see the website. That will be shown in the later slide. This is the database, which is the backend part. MySQL was employed to manage and store doctor data securely, where SQL is the primary query language. I have created a table which includes 6 columns: ID, doctor name, doctor information, doctor area, doctor image, and doctor category. I have included some tuples also. So here main important thing was about giving query. So MySQL allowed us to execute SQL queries from PHP to interact with the database. So for I have used Postman. I have used Postman for to test the working of backend APIs. So I'll be showing this in slide. So I mean the query is like this. I mean it's like general physician, doctor, an area I have given this as Bangalore, and if you give, so if you see this is all the data I have included in the database. So this is how it works. Coming back to PPT, so this is the live demo of my presentation. So this is a home button, about button, services button. I have added some power effects to this. So say for suppose I have given some random input. You'll be able to see no doctors found in your area. We are able to see this message because in our database we have not included this area and the doctor category. Say for suppose we give some inputs which are in the database. I have made it in such a way that this is case sensitive, so it will be no problem. So you'll be getting a message like doctors found in your area, and you'll be able to view their image, their name, and their experience and their overall experience. So this is how it works, and this is all about. I mean, this is how it works. Coming to the limitations of this project, so coming to the limitations, basically the main problem in this is the size of the database. Here we have included only 4 tuples, so the database size can be relatively larger. So I have included only 6 columns here. And one more limitations is it has support for a limited search range for some specific geographic locations. Coming to the future work, as I said, the size of the doctor's database can be increased with a greater number of records added to it, and we can add some more options like basic options like in the template, like for booking an appointment or tracking history of previous appointments can also be included. You can add these kind of things. So coming to, I mean, this is about conclusion. All the requirements were implemented successfully, like Figma, Locofy, and the website and the Postman all. Front end of the website was designed and handled by Figma and Locofy. My SQL database and PHP played a role in managing the backend part, as we saw in the previous slide. Dr. Search website was deployed using 00 web host. So these are the references I have taken for building this task. I have used Hackway, the WebDev playlist, and I have used W3 Schools for jQuery. So this is all about my presentation. Thank you.
I don't think you have included any Q&A slide, right?
No, sir.
You have to include a Q&A slide. Anyways,
Yes.
can you go to the limitations slide?
Limitations. Yes, sir.
Uh, okay. Now that you have mentioned all of these limitations over here, can
Sir.
you provide me some sort of solutions for them?
Sir, the first limitation is about size of the doctor's database, sir.
Hmm.
So this is the just a minute. I have included snapshot of my database where I included only 4 tuples. I mean 4 rows.
Hmm.
So we can add some more names of the doctors information, doctors area.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that is about one limitation. And one more thing I have included is it has support for a limited search range for some. I mean, it tells about geographic locations, sir. I mean, if you see in this website,
Hmm.
where did you input, no, sir? Here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I mean, we can beside some area, we can also add some specific locations. I mean, this area. I mean, it's like major. It will. I have included it like for major cities.
Okay.
So for some streets or colonies, so that we can include that kind of things also.
Hmm. And can you show me the database that you have created, the 4 tuples
Yes,
on the
sir.
application?
Sir, actually, it's not working.
I mean, if you have executed, the data must be there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just a minute. Sir, I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, I have to show. I mean, it has to appear here only. I don't know why it's not. I'm not able to get into.
Okay. Do explore the application while you're working on the project so that you know where things are.
Okay,
Uh,
sir.
in your presentation, you have mentioned paragraphs in a few slides. You do not have to do that. You just have to make bullet points, and you then have to elaborate on that bullet points. Try keeping a script with you. Don't try to read everything that is on the slide. Okay, do keep a script, practice it beforehand, so that you have a thorough knowledge about what you're going to say, and you also have the confidence to say what you have to say.
Okay, sir.
Other than that, there were no issues. The demonstration was okay.
Okay, sir.
We'll send you the review
Okay,
on
sir.
your email. Yeah, you can stop sharing your
Thank,
screen.
thank you, sir.
Yeah. If there are any sort of general queries that the interns would want to ask, do ask them right now. Or if we have any sort of presentations, we can move forward. I think we're done for today. Thank you all for joining in. We'll be ending the session.